Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. Well, Friday afternoon news came down as head coach Deion Sanders and Colorado have agreed to a contract extension, a 5-year, $54 million extension that will run through the 2029 season. His base salary will increase to $10 million for the 2025 season. He is now the highest paid coach in the Big 12. And really, we don't know all the private school details here, but he is believed to be among the 10 or so highest paid coaches on an average annual value moving forward. If he stays for the entire length of the deal, by 2029, he will be making $12 million. This more than doubles his salary 2 years into his tenure. And as I mentioned, it kind of sets some expectations in terms of, what should be happening on the field. And now that we no longer have Shedeur Sanders, we no longer have Travis Hunter, and of course we no longer have Shiloh. Danny, what was the lens that you used to look at this news in terms of, what stood out as being sort of significant or important?
Worth every penny is the way I look at it. I think it's money well spent if you're Colorado. I talked to Jeremy Bloom a year ago, the former Olympic skier and also Colorado wideout. And he was talking, and I've talked to Joel Klatt, talked to a lot of former Colorado people. He has resuscitated Colorado's football program. I mean, this was a place when I was in high school, this was a national champion, co-national champion. This was a perennial powerhouse in college football. And they had been an afterthought, irrelevant, empty stadiums. I remember a very prominent writer who I can't stand, so I won't say his name, had said when Deion was hired, was being like, these pothead liberals are not going to relate to Deion Sanders. He's not going to be able to, he's not going to bring any energy into this program. And he could not have been more wrong. He's done exactly that. And I think, by the way, when I talked to Jeremy Bloom, it was during the 4-8 season. Mm-hmm. And he was like, they were talking about giving him a messy deal, give him some of the, royalties and really incorporating some way to keep him there. I think it's great. I think it's great for college football. I'm pumped. I don't think it means anything as far as on the field this year. It's going to raise those expectations though, Chip. That's the one thing I think is going to be really interesting. But as far as I think it's worth every penny. I think it's money well spent. He's earned it too.
Yeah, I wrote a column on this on Friday and I said pretty much the same thing. It's well-deserved and it's a smart move on Colorado's part because for everything you just mentioned, we're talking about Colorado right now. And obviously anything with Deion is going to draw a reaction. And that's part of the whole situation. I write this column, I put it out, Facebook, social media, everything. And all the responses are either exactly or hell no, this is stupid. He ain't worth it, blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly the kind of reaction that he always gets. But if you look at it, Colorado, I don't have the list of the teams in Big Noon Saturday, but if you look at Big Noon Kickoff, in the 2 years since Deion has been at Colorado, Big Noon Kickoff has been at a Big 12 game 12 times. Colorado was playing in 7 of them. Ooh. Colorado is the only TV draw, if you think about it realistically, in that league. If Kansas State and Iowa State are both ranked in the top 15 and playing late in the season, they might get that Big Noon kick because it's got playoff implications. But Colorado is the only team in that league that is drawing eyes regardless of the record. And we saw that in his first year when they went 4-8. And they didn't carry him as much late in the season, but they carried him a whole hell of a lot for the first half of that year. And the ratings were doing fantastic. And you look at that situation, that helps Colorado. That helps the Big 12. And if you look at the future, if Deion is still there when the great culling comes or the next round of, conference consolidation, he makes Colorado attractive because they get eyes on television. They get attention. So he's putting Colorado in a position where it will be in demand by the new, whatever the hell this sport looks like in a few years. So $54 million, that's nothing. And then people got upset because he's getting $10 million a year, which puts him in the top 10. Well, do you know who the 9th highest paid coach was last year? And he's not in the top 10 anymore because Belichick and Deion have passed him up. He's now 11th of the salaries we know. Mark Stoops. Was anybody super angry when Mark Stoops got paid over $9 million a year? And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it.
Right.
But nobody cared He hadn't won the conference. He hasn't won. He's won 10 games once. He doesn't have these huge accomplishments. He hasn't had anybody on his team win a Heisman. Nobody cared when Mark Stoops got $9 million. Nobody cares that Eli Drinkwitz is getting $9 million. Nobody cares that Josh Heupel's getting $9 million, and they're all up near the top 10. But Deion does, and who's accomplished more in 2 years than you could argue they have. Draws a big, big angry response.
It is a little bit surreal, I think, to read official university releases where the university president and the athletic director are calling him Coach Prime.
Yes. That part is still weird and will always be weird.
It was in the graphic. It was in the first paragraph, the fourth paragraph, the sixth paragraph. Like this,
it's in the headline of my column.
Like you really have, if you are Deion Sanders, you have this whole university in the palm of your hand. You know, like this is, and that's not a bad, I'm not saying he's taking advantage of it, because again, it's working their ticket sales, the attention, like the points about the TV slots and the TV draw. And since media value is everything in the modern college sports world, he is doing all of that. And he took over a program that went 1-11. He had them tied for first place in the Big 12 standings, being a legitimate college football playoff contender coming down the stretch in just 2 years. I think the expectations are, okay, you are the highest paid coach in the Big 12. You should have a Big 12 title contender almost every single season, because being a Big 12 title contender means you're a college football playoff contender. I think that being among the list of coaches that are up there, you know, obviously at the top, you've got coaches who've won national championships, but even your Steve Sarkisian is sort of around there. Kalen DeBoer, is kind of around there. And Bill Belichick's the weird one too. Also being big, it's like, oh, Bill Belichick's getting $10 million. Deion Sanders absolutely should get $10 million. Here's the other piece of this that stands out. Financial security for coach and university. If Jerry Jones does pick up the phone and says, I want Deion. I ain't going to circumcise a mosquito, but I do want Deion. He's going to have to pay a whole bunch of money to Colorado to get Deion Sanders, or anybody else for that matter, any NFL team. The buyout that would go to Colorado if Deion Sanders were to get plucked away by the NFL is going to be significant. And also, if for some reason things go south, or Rick George, the athletic director, or the university president, who love Coach Prime, if they leave and somebody else comes in, now Deion Sanders has some financial stability as well. I kind of feel like it's a sensible deal. It is not one I saw coming. I didn't have murmurs of it. I wasn't trying to report out the Deion contract extension, but it arrived. We did some breaking news HQ on it, and I sat back and I thought about it, and I was like, okay, you know what? I think that this is a really good deal for both coach and university.
I also think there's an aspect of this too that I think often gets overlooked just based on the name of the coach and the money. It's a lot like NFL quarterbacks. Like if you look at the list of the highest paid NFL quarterbacks, it's not exactly Patrick Mahomes at number one. It was never Tom Brady at number one. It was always the quarterback who just got the deal, lately. And you see a lot of that with college coaches. Like the next coach who signs a contract extension is probably going to get $10 million a year. It just seems to be the going rate right now for being a college head coach in one of the power conferences. If you want to be taken seriously, you kind of have to pay your coach around $10 million a year.
Yep, I'd agree with that. From the tailgate before we got started, Jerry B, congrats to Coach Prime in Colorado. A move many people laughed at is paying off big time, and not just for Deion. Danny, that speaks to the unnamed media member who decided to set himself up to get freezing cold takes. And then this one, as we were having the discussion, KC3, does this put the nail in the coffin for Deion coaching in the NFL?
No. Because Jerry Jones, I was looking at the details. In a couple years, it's $12 million after, and if it's in 25, the buyout, it's $10 million in 26. Then it drops to $6 million in 27. But even if it was in 2 years and it was $10 million, Jerry Jones could write that check. I don't think he even has to move anything around to make sure it clears.
And if he keeps having success, especially post Shador and Travis, like he's still going to be a very, hot commodity on the market.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe him when he has talked about, I know on 60 Minutes and elsewhere, about the makeup of coaching an NFL player versus coaching college kids? And
yes.
desire. You believe it? Like
There's
he
a huge
prefers-
difference, Danny. I think you can speak to
No,
this
no.
pretty well.
Do you believe Deion Sanders that he prefers coaching college kids? And
Yeah.
that, like the
I think he prefers
personality of
players.
the NFL.
I think he prefers players who will listen to him and look up to him as somebody that, has been there and done that. And I think we're starting to blur the lines between professional and amateur, clearly. But I still think there is a difference between an NFL player and a college player. And there's a difference in age. When you're 18 to 22, you're looking up for a role model, somebody. And I do think that's where he probably does feel a sweet spot. I still don't think it means he's not going back, but I do take him at his word.
Yeah, like you're getting paid in college, but there's still a certain naivete among a 19-year-old compared to a 26-year-old who's been in the NFL for 3 years now.
I mean, you're going to be a little bit, you're not going to try to fight back, right?
Well, you're still the highest paid. Like he's still making 10. What's his, highest paid player is probably making 2, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
If he took the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and he was making 10, his quarterback would be making 6x what he's making.
Yeah.
That
power dynamic helping him out in a really big way. So fun time for Colorado football. Coach Prime. Hey, they say he's teaching. I was looking at that, looking at the release. He's
I can't remember what class he was teaching.
Yeah,
he's got a great gig.
Yeah,
I mean he's set it up where he probably. And I know he's giving Coach Bowden credit, but he probably watched the way Coach Bowden did it when he was at Florida State. He delegates. Now the difference is, he doesn't travel the way Coach Bowden is, but he doesn't have to. There is some truth in I don't have to go to your living room. You come to mine. And the way we've talked about this with the portal, they are more business transaction. It is more. When was the last time you saw an NFL coach go to some player's house? You don't see it. They just come. They want to see your facilities. They want to talk to you in person, and then you either sign with them or you don't. So he's got his TV show. He's got Hall of Famers on his staff. He's got a pretty good setup.
Would Florida State hire him if they made a move on Mike Norvell?
Well, that's a good. The buyout details become a little bit more interesting there too, because that becomes a little bit cost prohibitive.
Yeah, because you would have to pay the Mike Norvell buyout.
Right.
And then also contribute to the Colorado one as well. Will be very interesting.